Hi, a film I was interested to see, having seen a trailer online recently, was Bliss, the new film by Mike Cahill, the director and writer of Another Earth. It's on the surface a fairly rote science fiction story, but it has a few interesting elements to it which attracted a bit of thought to it, perhaps. It's the story of a regular guy working in a very ordinary office job who is told that he's being fired. But when he gets into an argument with his boss, it turns into a bit of a shoving match. The boss slips, falls, hits his head, and is immediately dead. Our main character panics, props him up in front of a window where he won't be seen within the office, but can be seen from outside on the higher floor, goes to a bar across the road and starts drinking. But a woman stops him and says that she can fix it. It appears that she has some kind of power over their surroundings and that he too has a kind of power. And the story then develops from there as we spend more time with these two characters played by Owen Wilson and Salma Hayek, and we start to learn exactly what kind of power it is and, in fact, what the nature of the world is that they inhabit. Because, in fact, we're told that the world as we know it is an artificial construct developed hundreds of years in the future where mankind is living in a utopia. Disease and poverty have been solved. The earth is a paradise. Scientific innovation has solved all problems. But the issue with that is that humanity doesn't really appreciate the paradise in which it lives. So this new system has been developed where we can experience the hellish nightmare of early 21st century Earth and really appreciate the bounty that life has given us. Or is it about two people falling into a hole of drug abuse and hallucinations? Is the real world the actual real world? And is the paradise just drug induced dream states? The film never comes down one way or the other, and I think that's its great strength. Um, it's it's an interesting idea, but it never feels like it's especially well developed. Cahill has a standard practice of coming up with interesting concepts that lend themselves to exploration and thematic analysis, but struggling with the human element. And that's still the case with Bliss. Although the characters do develop over the course of the story somewhat, it's a bit thin, it's a bit rote, and although the casting of Wilson and Hayek is interesting and it's a little more left field than one might expect, it still feels a bit awkward. Um, One aspect of the story that I did like was about how human nature asserts itself, where put into this environment where you can run around and steal cars and shoot things, exactly like a real world version of Grand Theft Auto. Human nature asserts itself, but also it works the other way, where given this utopian landscape filmed in Croatia, apparently, um, mankind is also more geared towards um, working towards betterment, even though elements of the supposed dream world are bleeding in, supposedly because um, the Owen Wilson character hasn't taken a sufficient number of crystals to let him exit the 21st century dream world. So, although it's quite an interesting film and fairly well made, and has a clever balance between the two worlds in terms of the 21st century world being very blue grey and bleached out, and the utopian world being bathed in sunshine and a gorgeous Mediterranean landscape. Um, it struggles simply because of that lack of the extra human element. It's much more of an intellectual exercise rather than a really engaging character study. The characters are ultimately incidental to the ideas that Cahill wants to examine. And as a result, although it's an interesting film to talk about in terms of its themes and ideas, it's not one to really engage with on any level other than the brain. And you should be feeling it in your heart.